When we look at the Assassin's Creed series, it can be easy to point out all of the glaring flaws within its newer games. Whether it be because of the series' seeming lack of innovation, its constant, almost yearly churn of contents, or its modern-day plotlines that can be very convoluted, this series may not be what it once was. But it's important to remember that in the late 2000s, in the early days of this now beloved gaming franchise, these games were unlike any other at the time, with a deep reverence for history, religion, and culture, a unique sandbox gameplay design, and alluring characters that drew us in. Assassin's Creed, and more specifically Assassin's Creed 2, introduced us to the wonders of the past, like nothing else before. Hi, my name is Jay, and these are the Gaming Essentials. I remember playing Assassin's Creed 2 when I was just 10 years old. It's insane to me that that was 15 years ago. But I remember it like it was yesterday and how it developed in me a love for history. Not long afterwards, however, the series did hit a slump. But there's a reason why the series is still going, as it tries to reattain the heights of Assassin's Creed 2. And when I played this game today, everything about it came back to me like muscle memory. From the game's free running to the electro-renaissance musical score, and the various characters and locations, I was surprised at how much of this game had left a mark on me. Sure, that might be because many future games in this series kept to this same formula, but I also think it speaks to how influential this game was to my generation and even future ones. Whether it be Horizon Zero Dawn or Insomniac's Spider-Man series, the impact of Assassin's Creed 2 can still be felt throughout gaming, for better or worse. No matter if you're new to gaming and have never played an Assassin's Creed game, or if you've stuck with it all these years, take a trip with me through the Animus as I revisit a truly enlightening moment in my own history and in the history of gaming. Nowadays, there are numerous historical video games that transport audiences to a number of different time periods and eras. Ghost of Tsushima takes us to feudal Japan. Kingdom Come Deliverance takes us to medieval Europe as a peasant who becomes a knight. And Red Dead Redemption lets us live out our cowboy fantasies in turn-of-the-century America. Prior to Assassin's Creed 2, these types of games weren't very popular. While there were historical video games before Assassin's Creed, like Civilization or the Total War series, Assassin's Creed was one of the first video games that breathtakingly captured these historical civilizations and let us, the players, explore them and turn them into our playgrounds. To this day, exploring Renaissance Venice and the surrounding landscapes is still one of the greatest joys in all of gaming. The civilians go about their lives, walking the streets, and you can accidentally bump into them as you run from guards. Other non-playable characters will gawk and jeer at you as you climb up a wall. These are the small, almost unnoticeable details that help to make these locations come alive and that transport you there, and that were breakthroughs at the time. From walking through crowded streets, interacting with courtesans and street performers, jumping across rooftops, and scaling large towers, all of these activities are still some of the most immersive and enjoyable experiences you can have in all of gaming. And when you reach the top of a tower, where one wrong button press could have sent you to your death, and after having looked out to the vast reaches of the city, performing leaps of faith is still exhilarating 15 years on. But none of this would be truly as memorable if it weren't for the game's story. And even here in this area, Assassin's Creed 2 excels thanks to the game's protagonist, Ezio Auditore da Firenze. There are many reasons why Ezio's story is so compelling, and why future games have always tried to replicate Ezio's appeal. From his caring attitude to friends and family, his youthful vibrancy, and his fearlessness to make mistakes and learn from them, Ezio embodies the sense of adventure that makes this game great. It also helps that Ezio has an amazing level of charisma and swagger that'll make any icy heart melt.
So, how did I do?
I've seen better.
You wound me with your cruel words.
All right, Smargiasso. Let's put your skills to the test.
But for me, what makes Ezio an indelible character is how down-to-earth he is. Ironic considering how much time you spend with him in elevated heights. Ezio's story begins with him simply just wanting to seek revenge for the death of his father and brothers. But as time goes on, he learns and becomes swallowed up by this plot between the assassins and the Templars, and the secret war that's been waged for hundreds of years. If you thought your uncle's conspiracy theories were weird, just wait till you hear Uncle Mario's. No, not that Mario. But funny enough, I wouldn't be surprised if this one also happens to be a plumber.
Don't you recognize me? It's me, Mario!
Uncle Mario?
And along the way, Ezio becomes indoctrinated into this creed and learns more about his family's past. He encounters others that help him to become a stronger assassin. But what makes Ezio great is that he also makes mistakes. He's rageful and vengeful at first, exposing himself to his enemies in blind hatred. He can get impatient and sometimes lets himself get caught. But he learns, is patient with himself, and becomes resourceful, learning to rely on the wisdom and experience of his friends and mentors.
You are not Fieri. Do not become him. Che la morte ti dia le pace che cercavi. Requiesca in pace.
But the writing and story go beyond that. For those who want to go deeper into the game's story, it's surprisingly complex. History buffs can actually look up some of these characters and events, and may even be surprised at the historical accuracy of this game. Or if you're interested, you can get sucked into the Assassins vs. Templar conspiracy, which extends all the way up from Adam and Eve to the present day. Sure, this might be some of the weaker portions of the story, and it's pretty ridiculous to say that Adam and Eve were the very first assassins, but it's there for those who love that sort of thing. Now, let's talk about Assassin's Creed 2's gameplay. Like I said earlier, it's hard to deny just how influential this was and still is in terms of its action and combat. In fact, a lot of today's action and gameplay tropes originate in large part due to this game. But just because something is tropey doesn't mean it's not fun. Mixing in light elements of stealth, free running, sword-based combat, and exploration, Assassin's Creed utilizes all of these elements and lets you, the player, decide what's the best approach. If you're not a fan of stealth and want to go in for brutal, bloody kills with your hidden blade, the game allows you to do that, as players can dodge and parry attacks with visceral results. Or if you're like me and like to play things stealthy, you can perch atop balconies, poison your enemies, and wait for the perfect moment to strike your targets. While Assassin's Creed didn't invent this sandbox style of gameplay, it's certainly one of the big influences that made it almost a gaming standard. Nowadays, games try to give players a variety of different approaches to take down their enemies, and a swath of different side quests that highlight these mechanics. And part of that is because of Assassin's Creed. And I'd be remiss if I didn't highlight one of the defining pillars of Assassin's Creed: climbing. Call me outdated, but I still prefer the old-fashioned way of climbing in Assassin's Creed games, where players have to actually observe walls and environments to find pathways up. It becomes a puzzle and a challenge as you have to scout around the area and find where to position Ezio. And one impatient move can mean a plummet 1,000 feet down. Climbing also changes how you, the player, go about missions. Even when just walking, trying to get from point A to point B, I found myself always running and climbing along rooftops. Not just because it's something unique to this game, but because it meant I could approach missions differently and made it so walls and giant buildings weren't obstructions in my way. Having varying elevations means I could have an advantage over targets below me. It also meant that no place was safe, and big palaces became fun mazes and pathways for me to overcome as I sought to eliminate my foes. I could go on and on about this game, talking about its many different supporting characters, its twist on history, and the amazing soundtrack by Jesper Kyd. But not every single element here is great, like some of the more banal side jobs, the never-ending checklist of things to complete, and much more. But even then, however, with some of these minor criticisms, 15 years later, Assassin's Creed 2 still resonates with me, and how a young man who lost his family became part of an even bigger brotherhood. If you want to look at the impact that this game has had on the gaming industry, all you have to do is look at some of the most popular single-player games over the past few years and see how those games' DNA traces back to Assassin's Creed 2. If you're just getting into video games now or haven't played this in a while, I highly recommend going back to play this and seeing just how ahead of its time this game was. It's a display of the power of brotherhood, how greatness can succeed in secret, and how nothing is true and everything is permitted. Which is why Assassin's Creed 2 is a gaming essential. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, feel free to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel, as it really helps me to grow. Also, if you're a fan, feel free to leave a comment down below telling me what are some of your personal favorites. And I'll be happy to even talk about my own down below, Assassin's Creed Unity. Come back soon for even more on the best that video games have to offer.